Lord of the breakthrough. How many of us are in need of a breakthrough? How many of us are in a self-imposed prison of bitterness, not yet having secured our breakthrough to forgive? All of us have had sin imposed upon us, and all of us must get to the point, like Joseph, of being able to forgive. I'm so drawn to the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, chapters 37 through 50. How Joseph, raised in Canaan with his 11 brothers, and then betrayed by them, and as an adolescent sold into slavery, then in Egypt, falsely accused, put in prison, forgotten in prison. And this 13-year journey for Joseph could have easily been one of bitterness and anger, and blaming God, angry at his brothers who had betrayed him. And all of this after God had given him a vision that he would be greatly used and he would be a leader. How do you overcome that level of bitterness? How do you not shake your fist at God and say, "Why me?" As opposed to being open and saying, "What in me, God, do you want to accomplish? What is your intent?" It was only after some years now in Pharaoh's leadership, his number 2, that Joseph was storing up grain for 7 years because God had let him know there was a famine coming. And through the wisdom of storing up that grain for 7 years, Joseph was able to then save his family as his brothers came from Canaan and begged for mercy. Now Joseph was the man, and his brothers needed him. Now Joseph could get his revenge. But Joseph had the wisdom to understand, as he communicated to his brothers, "God sent me ahead of you to Egypt so that I could save you." And Joseph understood that he would be used of God to preserve what we now know is the messianic line. In Matthew chapter 1, we see the genealogy, the messianic line that starts with Abraham through Isaac, and then Jacob, which was Joseph's father, and then Judah, which was Joseph's brother, and then Perez, which was Joseph's nephew. And Joseph had the wisdom to know that God was orchestrating all of this for his glory and the good of his people. You see, when sin is imposed upon you, it's as if your faith goes in a crucible of fire. And in the midst of that, James tells us that we must endure, we must persevere in the midst of that, while your faith is being tested. What is it about your faith that's being tested? I would suggest 2 things: your connection with God and the things that you believe about God. Joseph stayed connected with God. Even when Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, he said, "How could I do this and sin against such a great God?" And connected to the things he knew to be true, that God was too wise to make a mistake, too loving to be unkind, too powerful for his purposes to be thwarted. So in this, Joseph saw the big picture and was able to free his brothers and release them so that they would not forever be plagued by shame and self-condemnation and contempt. Do you need to see your God of the breakthrough and forgive? As your faith is in that crucible of fire, understand that God can give you a breakthrough by hanging on to him and believing the things you know to be true. God is working it out for His glory and for your good.